Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this Women at NCSA event. My name is Alice Delage, and I'm a project manager at NCSA. For those of you who are not familiar with our events, we hold monthly events at NCSA focused on topics such as women in the workplace, women in science, women in tech, diversity and inclusion. We typically hold these events on the first Wednesday of the month from 2 to 3 p.m. in person. And so we've gone online for the past few months now. And we are so happy to see so many of you today. And we are also honored to welcome Esther Ngumbi, who is assistant professor in the Department of Entomology at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. The story of how Esther became a scientist and many of her activities are truly fascinating and very inspiring. And I hope she will give us at least a little bit of an idea of how she helps to advance research, support her community back in her home country of Kenya, and inspires young girls to pursue the same route, among many other things. So today, Esther's talk is entitled Beyond Inclusion and Diversity, Building Supportive Communities for Underrepresented Minority Groups in STEM. Please join me in a warm welcome for Esther. And Esther, we look forward to hearing you.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay. Thank you. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can. It's not in presentation mode, but we can see.
Okay, I'm gonna make it on presentation mode. Just 1 second. Okay, you can see it, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you everyone that's out here today and saved some 30 minutes to listen to my talk about beyond inclusion and diversity, building supportive communities for underrepresented minorities groups in STEM. And it's been such a week, and the need for representation has never been so important. And as I speak this topic, I just wanted, first of all, to just take a moment to, just a moment of silence to appreciate George Floyd's life. And so I'll do that. Okay, thank you. So I will start. So back in 2010, I was a cover girl in a report that actually was asking the same question: why so few women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? And this was a National Science Foundation report that was put forward by American Association of University Women. This is an organization that has been around for 100 years and that has been key and instrumental in supporting women, underrepresented women like me, to make it in STEM and to asking difficult questions. Why? Why are we still underrepresented? And so little did I know that that was going to be a topic that would still carry on. 10 years later, things have not changed. And true, 10 years later, things have not changed. So this is just a very recent report by the National Academy of Sciences, and that really just details how underrepresentation is still prevalent. While we have achieved marginal progress, it has only happened for a few groups. The majority of the groups that were still underrepresented 10 years ago, and I guess 20 years ago, are still underrepresented. Clearly, I don't know about you, but I think there's something that must be done. Clearly, there's something that we are not doing. Clearly, there is room to improve, to progress, and to ask ourselves tough questions. Why? Why are we not including? And yes, there's been efforts. Every university in the United States has a diversity and inclusion office. Every organization. These have been buzzwords for the last 10 years. Yet, our minorities have to protest. Yet, minorities have to speak up. Yet, minorities have to die. It's questions that we must all genuinely ask, and we must all genuinely want to be part of creating change, to changing this question, to finding sustainable and solutions to understand, to ensure that 10 years later, we're not speaking about underrepresentation. And yeah, just continuing what I shared is, while we've seen progress and there's data evidence that recent National Academy of Sciences report on the status of women and underrepresented groups, yes, we've seen change, but it's not the right change that we are expected, we wanted to see. And a lot of science has gone into this topic. A lot of funding has gone into this topic. A lot of us in the university system, in the communities, we ask ourselves every day, how can we change? How can we ensure that everyone, regardless of their ethnicity, has a chance to succeed in science, has a chance to succeed in society, has a chance to live a life like everyone else. And a lot of science that has gone has shown that, yeah, there's a lot of still social, environmental factors, structural, cultural, institutional biasness, and stereotypes that continue to drive underrepresentation and limit the progress of the few, the minorities. And more so, most recently, we've realized that there's also an intersection when you're a woman of color and you are Black or Latino or you're Asian. And then there's all these different biases combined together, and it can weigh on you. It can weigh on your career trajectory. It can weigh on your everyday ability to perform and be your best. And I think having these conversations in the universities is important, because I do believe that while the foundations for a STEM career are laid in earlier in life, we all know that scientists and engineers are made in colleges and universities. And so efforts to change the trajectory of underrepresentation must happen in our colleges, it must happen in our universities, and it must happen every day. And just building on the most recent data that is out there by NSF, still only 22% awarded to underrepresented minorities. And only 9% of all science and engineering doctorate degrees go to underrepresented minorities. Clearly, there's a long way to go. We have a long way to go. These numbers should not be at 9%. They should be at, say, 100%. I believe so. I mean, I do think that we are in the United States, and it's a developed country where everyone should have a chance to succeed, and more so in science. And so just looking at just the progression, while you made the progression has just gone, there's still a lot to be done. I don't know about you, but that number, the 9%, clearly lays out the need for all of us to care. And this number is not just number, it's people. It's somebody like me that is represented by a number, and it has to change. And because we are not, they are not making through the pipeline, so clearly only less than 10% of the workforce in science is represented by people from minority groups that include Asian, Latinos, African Americans, Africans in the diaspora. And once again, just looking at the numbers clearly puts a task to everyone who believes in paving the way for many more to participate in science, broadening the participation of underrepresented groups in STEM. And when we think about Blacks, they account for only less than 5% of the people that are working in our labs, at our universities, at our STEM industrial occupations. Less than 5%. Clearly, the statistics is not something to be proud of, and I think there's much more that can happen. If all of us commit to actually living the principles of inclusivity and diversity, these numbers should be changing. They should be increasing, and I look at how we've watched, data dashboards where numbers are changing. We should have a database dashboard to really keep a track of these numbers. And when they're not changing, we should ask why, and it should be our task and everyone's task to change this statistic. And it's not just only, and when you make it to your job, when you make it to have a career in science, you still face discrimination. And this was a Pew Research Center survey report that detailing 62% of people like me have experienced discrimination in their workplace. And if you face discrimination day after day, month after month, year after year, believe you me, it weighs you down. It makes you question, do I really belong? Is this my place? And it doesn't matter how much support there is. Sometimes you will come back home and start wondering, am I really in the right place? And to add on to that, existing stereotypes. As a Black person, I know I'm perceived as lazy, probably, incompetent, unable to deliver. We have these existing stereotypes that we like to label people, to label underrepresented groups. But I know deep down that these are just stereotypes. Given the chance, everyone can be their best. Everyone can deliver. I know it. I know for myself, growing up in a rural village community, never had an opportunity to have a science lab. But when I got the opportunity, I realized that I was the scientist that I could be. I realized that I wasn't actually lazy. I was very hardworking. I realized that I could deliver. And so it is important that we stay away from really stereotyping people, stereotyping groups, because it doesn't really do justice to our quest to change the narrative, our quest to broaden the participation of women in STEM, our quest to invite other people to partake of science. And then there are other many reasons. This just data has shown that there are other reasons that really underlie the underrepresentation we see. Lack of role models in the society, lack of people to encourage minority groups and say, despite what the society stereotypes you to be, no, you can be the other person. You can be the professor. You can be the biologist. You can be the chemist. Not driving minorities away, but encouraging them, understanding the challenges that they face, and being inclusive every day, every month, every year, never tiring. Removing the discriminations that go along, be it in recruitment, hiring, promotion. So these are just some of the main reasons why we still have underrepresentation. And for me, I think the most important is that lack of a sense of belonging. When they come finally to the universities, that feeling of, you first of all, you realize you're the only probably 10%. Remember, we said it's a 9% number. Out of 100 people, you're the only person of color that stands out. How can you feel you belong when you just find you're the only person out there? And that sense of belonging drives a lot of just talent in science away. And so it is important, as we continue to build inclusivity, to build diversity, to really create opportunities, communities of support in our institutions, to ensure that if I come and I realize I'm the only person, I still feel like I am in the right place. I am in Illinois, and this is my department. This is my home base. That sense of belonging. And I'm valued. I'm appreciated. I am seen. And my role is appreciated by everyone that I'm working with. And women are more or less likely to feel that they belong to science than men. And so we need to ensure that we create that community where people feel they belong. Because when you feel you belong, believe you me, then you unleash your potential. Then you unleash that scientist that is you. Then you unleash those other qualities that really you are as a person have. Then you start to shine. And these are just some of to just drive the home the point of underrepresentation. Just some of the students, you can I'll just read one where somebody says, yeah, I felt out of place, especially because I was like one or two girls at the time that was a physics major. And when you walk into these spaces and realize you're the only person, then yeah, that immediately that sense of, do I really belong here? And that's the need that we need really to ramp up our diversity efforts to really ensure that there is everybody. We create a rainbow of students in our classroom, a rainbow of faculty members, a rainbow of this community, wherever any initiative that belongs to STEM, that there's a rainbow of people, that when a Black kid walks in, they feel they see another person and they see another person and they want to stay because they all of a sudden they feel they belong. There's that social connection with their peers and not feeling different. But we all know if we don't ensure that we ramp up our efforts, yes, underrepresentation has consequences. First of all, it deprives the state of Illinois, our American nation, and our global world from fully benefiting from the contributions of minority groups. And I do believe everyone has talent. Everyone has potential. Once given the opportunity, once given that sense of we value you, we support you, make it happen, then definitely, then you start, as I saying, seeing people unleash their potential. Underrepresentation, when we don't make it happen, then all the untapped human capital that can further provide a much needed diversity of perspectives that are essential to sustain the technological and scientific advantages of the American nation and our global world, then we fail to tap on that potential. We lose that potential. And as we lose the potential, we lose the opportunities for many innovative solutions that are so much needed to tackle our society's grand challenges. Truly, we miss out on a lot. And I do believe that, yeah, all these barriers and all these inequalities actually intersect to determine the academic and non-academic outcomes to our students, to our faculty, and to our employees, and to members of community, our community. And sometimes, yes, they can weigh on an individual down. They can really, even when you're determined to be your best. I know, for example, this week, I felt weighed down by everything that was happening. It can affect your identity. I've had to question myself. I was just born Black. I didn't choose to be Black. Why must I suffer? Why must I always be viewed as not enough? Why must I face systemic biasness just because of my color, not because of actually my potential as a person? And it can really just impact our productivity, the productivity of minorities, the productivities of all the underrepresented groups. So it is important that we change this. It is important that we change this trajectory. So I will spend the next few minutes just thinking about how can we change this trajectory? How can we move from a 9% of degrees that we're giving that are going to underrepresented groups to a 50%? How can we create a sense of belonging all throughout the STEM pipeline, right from when they're in elementary school, as they move through high school, as they come to our universities, as they move to our workforce? How can we create that sense of belonging for underrepresented minority groups? First of all, I think change begins with us. It is not up to our institutions. It all begins with you as a person, because guess what? Institutions are made up of people like you and me. And if we do not speak up, if we do not become the change, then there's no systematic change that can happen. If you become the change, and everybody that's listening to me becomes that change that we want to see, then all of a sudden we form a community of people that want to change. It's not about just titles. It's not about diversity and inclusion and appointing people to have these titles. It's about you and I speaking up, refusing to accept the status quo, refusing to accept if you find yourself in an initiative that is not diverse, speak out, call out for inclusivity. If you find yourself in a panel and you look around, you realize, no, it's not a representative of the diversity that there is in our 21st century. Speak up, advocate for it, go beyond, be understanding, be empathetic, be a listener, importantly. Acknowledge, let's acknowledge the history that it is and the data evidence that despite all the initiatives, we're yet to see this change. Change has not happened. And yeah, the National Academy of Science report has several, and it is a good report. I encourage, if you haven't read it, you take time to read it. But I think on top of their strategies and solutions, I think it is important that we acknowledge the issues surrounding minorities, issues that affect their outcomes, and it's not about them because they is us. When we work together, then we are a society, we are one. And yes, we cannot erase years of history. We cannot just walk as if nothing has happened. Yes, we know there have been systematic biases all along. We have to acknowledge that and then find ways to move past history. And we all have to reaffirm our identities. Yes, it is important. I acknowledge I am Black, I'm African, and I am woman. And when all of us acknowledge and we realize, yes, but we are one society, when we come together, when we move over our differences, then that's when magic happens. That's when we clearly start ensuring that all of us really unleash our potentials. And I think also we still, because most of these issues are systematic. And so while I do my role, while you play your role, I think our university institutions and community initiatives, we all must continue to create welcoming and supportive learning environments. Environments that allow the people that feel different to feel they belong to science, to the community. Let's create spaces to support women, to support minorities, and to create safe havens where people can just take a break and talk about things that are going on and express themselves. It is important. Let's build together. I think most of the times, and I think why we've failed to really make progress is because a lot of the times initiatives are not created. I know sometimes we as faculty members, we as scientists, we want to create outreach programs and then we hand them over to the community, say, here it is. We create this, we write the proposals. Yes, we are going to increase the participation of minorities. We assume, but we need to just work together, because when we work together, first of all, then we understand what are their needs. What are the issues that prevent progress? Treat minorities as active participants and not receivers of diversity and inclusion efforts. I know a lot of time we just do things to mark the box. To say, yes, my department is inclusive, it's diverse. but we truly don't immerse ourselves in actively being there, caring, co-creating, because when we co-create, then we show we care, and we all then rise up together. And there's need to invest in community programs. Universities cannot do it alone. There's a lot of weightlifting that happens in communities because this is where minorities are living. Let's invest in these programs. And it shouldn't be just a one-time. I know a lot of time we do one-time STEM outreach activities and we tap on our shoulder and say, we're done. I've done all the diversity stuff. That's it. I've made my contributions this year. I think real change takes a long time. We must see it as a long journey. It's not a sprint, but it's a marathon and a long lifetime marathon. And so there's need to, and this before this presentation, I was just on call with a community program, Dream, that is working with young Black boys. And I think Tracy shared that, yeah, sometimes as universities, we develop the outreach programs and then we hand them over to the community. I think when we just work together with the communities and co-create and ensure that we listen to what they need and how we can best support, and that should be continuous. And I think one of the things that came out was the need of just having a full-time employee that actually is paid by the university but works with communities to ensure that there's a progression of these initiatives and it's sustainable throughout as long as universities are around. And I think, you know, it's also important to have inclusive classrooms so that we do not drive away our students when they come, when they find themselves the only people of color or minorities, they still are able to thrive. And if they're being left behind, we should have, peer-to-peer mentoring and really a lot of just initiatives to ensure that they're not left behind, to support them all through the academic programs to ensure that we do not lose anybody that steps in our college, definitely gets over and gets to finish their degree. And we all must step out of our comfort zone. Enacting real change is an uncomfortable task. And especially when it deals with race, when it deals with differences, it can be uncomfortable, but we all must step out of our comfort zone to ensure that we work together to close these glaring gaps. And as we do that, we need to support each other, join societies, student clubs, and any other support. And whenever you're in a support group, if you realize it's not diverse enough, call for diversity. Next time, bring a friend that doesn't look like you. Bring a faculty member that doesn't look like you. Bring a student that doesn't look like you. And I think earlier this year, there was the story of these three students that just met at college, and they realized that they had to support each other and they had to be their brother's keeper. And years later, they were able to succeed and finish their medicine. And today they're practicing doctors. I think it's a great story of just building that support. And it's not just a one-time support, it is a lifetime support. And you actually, instead of just also, you try to be as a person, create that support, be that community of support. As we said, sometimes change will have to begin with us. Most of the time we can say, we can leave it out, let my institution do that, let this group do that. But I think you be the change, and that's form that community of support. Outreach and sustained outreach I know one of the caveat with a lot of outreach programs is that they're not really sustainable. Most of the time, they're just one-time events, but I know that real change, and if we have to ensure that students move all along the pipeline, it has to be there. And when these outreaches are happening, let's ensure that they're very inclusive. As growing up, I always say, you can't be what you don't see. You cannot just go to outreach and have go to a black school and have all the white students going for outreach. Clearly, the students won't see themselves as future university students. So let's try to have inclusive outreach teams, and that all boils down to ensuring that we as departments really bring out a diverse set of students, diversify our student pool, diversify our faculty pool, diversify our businesses pool. That by doing that, we'll be able to really ensure that young people see themselves as scientists of tomorrow. And I think, yeah, it's important that we continue to showcase scientists that have succeeded on our universities, departments. I don't think we must wait for protests and riots so that we value diversity and create all the hashtags and media statements. I think this media statement should be an everyday thing. We shouldn't wait for a moment like this to start showing that we value people of color, we value other groups. This should be an everyday value where you create that sense of belonging to ensure that we continue to build the community. And we must continue to be out there, visible, but very inclusive groups. I think, yeah, it is important to have a rainbow of scientists, a rainbow of outreach teams, a rainbow of community initiatives where we really showcase that we all can make it. And I will end just by saying that let's be the change. Change does not happen at our universities. Change will begin with us. And when you and myself and everyone creates that change, creates that support, calls for inclusivity, calls for going beyond just terms, really living an inclusive lifestyle every day, I think that's when we'll see change. That's when we'll see the numbers move. And I would say, yeah, I wouldn't be here as a scientist if all of that had not happened. So I hope we do that. And with that, I want to say thank you so much again for the opportunity, and I will open up for questions.
Thank you so much, Esther. This was very inspiring. I want to offer that people who have questions can use the chat to post their questions, and I can read them aloud. And maybe we can give a few minutes for the first questions to come. And I guess I can just start with a question and let people think of theirs. Esther, do you have examples of initiatives that you think have shown good progress? Do you have examples that you would like to share?
I think that, you know, there's a lot of just initiatives, you know, in our community, starting with just our own community. I think, as I said, right now I'm in collaboration with Dream House, and they're doing a lot of good job just reaching out to Black young boys and having them, you know, come to the campus and, you know, see themselves as a future, and supporting them in every day so that they can make it through the pipeline. And around the Champaign Urbana community, we have a lot of just community initiatives. And even within the university, we have a lot of outreach programs by different departments. And I think, yeah, it's just all of these are successful in their own ranks. But I think, yeah, one of the things that is important is to continue really having a clear metric so that we know what are the outcomes that we consider as a success. You know, I think that's one thing that I feel it's been 20 years or 10 years of just not the numbers changing. Why are they not changing? You know, that is food for thought, I think, for all of us still. While we can say this success, but I think success is when those numbers are way at 50%, at 80%. So yeah, so I think there's still much more to do than to celebrate.
Very interesting thoughts also on keeping organizations and institutions and people accountable,
Yes.
like you said, for those statistics.
Yes, it's really, and I think, yeah, like just the way we evaluate ourselves every year, I think institutions, initiatives must evaluate themselves. We must have that barometer of progress. How are we ensuring that inclusivity? How are we? And yeah, this must be visible. I think we must be able to show that and really track that progress as it happens.
We have a question in the chat from Lauren Lynch. Do you have any advice for people who are teaching a science or engineering class? What can professors do to create welcoming environments for students?
I think, yeah, that's a good question. I think just, you know, first of all, I think it's just meeting students where they are, you know, and really acknowledging that, you know, we cannot assume and treat all students equal. So just having that background knowledge, so when they come to our class, we know we have minorities, and especially when they are minorities, they've gone through, most likely they didn't go through good schools, so they most probably are lagging behind. And so ensuring that they feel welcome, they feel like even when they're not you know, really being productive of the rest, they still feel that they're part of it. And then being, I think, observant as well. You know, if they're being left behind, then ensuring that they can get the support that they need so that they make up for what the weaknesses are. And I think, yeah, just also, and eventually we'll have to look at even the pedagogy and just the syllabus. Sometimes I know, you know, a lot of these things were created in a system that had no minorities, and so I can come to a class and you show me all this before pioneers who are male, white, and it's like, where do I belong in this? Do I really even, can I have a future in this? So really also, and acknowledging any of history faults that have happened in science and putting it there. I think that's important. When we truly acknowledge the system and what has happened before, that's important. And trying to just showcase, yes, while the system has been biased before, but we now have several role models that are making it, showing these examples to students when you're making your class, trying to have a diverse pool of just you know, papers, you make them read. So all these things, I think they might be subtle, but they are truly, I know they're making a student realize that I have a space here. I can make it. I can see myself in the future as that. So that's what I would say.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We have more of a comment than a question. Inspiring talk. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Pauline.
I guess just to follow up on something you just said, for myself, I sometimes, you know, we are all subject to maybe not paying enough attention and maybe not having responded the way we would want to be very inclusive in any situation, right? And I wish sometimes that there was something or someone to help me point to all these systematic and you know, system embedded occasions where um, um, where discrimination happens, and I don't see it sometimes, even because I've only seen only that ever. And I, well, I have to say that this series, Women at NCSA, for myself has helped me a lot, opening my eyes on a number of things, and um, thanks to speakers like you, like yourself.
And I think, yeah, we can also, universities can really do, I think, we can do a better job, because we are in academic environment, so we have access to the knowledge. So we should create this. We create lab safety, things, and we create so many documents as universities. So we need to create, this racism and just, injustices, discrimination. That's a reality. So we need to create these documents. And but I think also universities are doing a good job, because yeah, we have so much training that we're doing, training to be able to see if you're being biased, training to avoid sexual harassment. So I think we're moving in the right direction. But sometimes, as I said, without ourselves, just I think change begins with a person, because when we all just realize, we change our ways, and you change your way, and I change my way, and I change, and everybody does that, I think then we create that environment and progress happens.
Thank you. I will read another question. Can you give advice for mentoring underrepresented minority students, especially younger ones, in a research lab? Are there things that non-minority PIs should keep in mind?
So I think, yeah, one of the things is that, we all come, just the way systematic, biasness is really created, just even the way we are brought up. The different like work ethics. So they're all, I come to the environment probably with not, sometimes I may not have the work ethic that my mentor is expecting me to. But I think just clearly, first of all, having an honest conversation talk with the student, and just understanding their background, uh, a little bit of just what they've gone through, and then just what they expect, how, just kind of really just having an honest conversations, and realizing that, yeah, people are different, so leaving room for just things that you as a mentor consider, oh, should never happen. But probably sometimes, I may come and I've never experienced that. For example, I came from Kenya, and our systems of education are so different. And so probably just, there's so many things that I had to just change. And if my mentor was not understanding and patient with me, and also telling me the culture, I think sometimes, just being, honest and saying, this is the culture here, this is X and Y, and meeting halfway, and just allowing also rooms for mistake. People are people, and being understanding, being empathetic, being patient, and not being judgmental. Just even when they've done something, not just being patient, and finding ways to just talk and have them change if there's something they're not probably keeping up to the task. There's a better way you can just have a conversation, and you can clearly move to the right direction of things, rather than just really showing them they don't belong, or always not picking up on them. I've been in lab meetings sometimes, and sometimes the advisor may not pick up on you, and you clearly as a student think that, okay, definitely something is not going well. So just minor details that sometimes can mean a lot. And really just, I think at the end, it's just patience, understanding, and having honest conversations, and clearly putting out what you expect, of the student, and so that they know or they start working towards it, and being respectful too of that they're different, they're coming from a different environment, and they may have already, as I shared, we already have the environmental biasness and stereotyping. I may already be coming knowing that I'm already prejudged, and so these are all things. But I think with just patience, with just understanding, and being just very honest with students, you can make it. You can make the mentoring of students be fun, and even when they make mistakes, not just finding a way to correct, and to teach what is the right way of doing things, and never giving up on students. I think, I mean, honestly, there's so few, and we don't need to drive underrepresented minorities away.
Thank you, Esther. Another question. Do you have any suggestions for recruiting a more diverse group of graduate students to a program that does not currently have many underrepresented minorities, as well as providing a welcoming and supportive environment?
I think it all boils down to our, I know most of the time graduate students are, the departments, and we have the recruitment officers. And I think it all boils down to, first of all, it's just individual faculty members, because I think, we are the ones at the end that, have students coming. But it's important to also to create the pipeline to ensure that right from high schools and universities can create this community or initiatives that start to really have that diverse talent. For example, like at U of I, we have Parklands College. And so ensuring that all these feeder routes that bring our students, right from there, we create that diversity. And I think that's the only way to ensuring right from, and even, all the community initiatives, making sure that, because they will not become STEM all of a sudden if they didn't get that nurturing support all the way from just at a younger age. So just trying to ensure our feeder routes where we're getting our students, we call for diversity, and really just interviewing as many, and just and trying to, as a department, just having just basic quotas or policies that say we cannot just be a department that doesn't have diversity. I think also, and trying as much to really recruit students from minority groups. And I know sometimes people say there are a lot of work, but at the same time, diversity is strength. Diversity is just it's so just going out of of your way, and talking with right at the community colleges or high schools. Just I think these programs where they can start early, immersing into our research labs, and then that's how we grow future students. So I think that pipeline, it has to be a pipeline, and it always has to be diverse as we continue to that's what I think. And also and encourage graduate students too, when they get out to their meetings, to just also recruit others. And I think it's a communal effort, diversifying the base. It's a communal effort, and it starts with everybody that is working in the university system. From when they out there, they're our ambassadors. So, and the students that are in the graduate schools, when they go out to meetings, when they go out for outreach, they start just trying to recruit diversified friends. And so it's tough though, with such such a pipeline, and so many stereotypes as well that, as you said, that are associated with recruiting diverse students, that students that don't look like everyone else. So but let's yeah, give them a chance, invest in them, and be patient, and yeah, and with time you will see them, and be accommodative, and just, and don't give up on students just on if they, you know, they've messed up once. Don't, you know, let's just be patient for one more year, you know, sometimes, yeah. And so
Thank you, Esther. We're almost coming up at the top of the hour. One last opportunity for everyone to ask a question. I'll give just a few seconds more.
just thank you for everybody that, you know, attended, Carly and Ruth and Lauren and everyone, and just thank you for your questions. Thank you for, yeah, thank you for being together in such a, yeah, as I say, it is sometimes it can be burdening to the minorities to just feel like it weighs heavy on just realizing you're few, and realizing that there's so much of the society and the structures are still meant to restrict you, and it's yet, you know, that, you know, as I said, everybody has such unique potential. I know that, you know, if we are more accepting, more accommodative, then we truly unleash the potential of everyone, including the minorities. I know, for me as a woman, you know, I love science so much ever since I discovered science, and I was like, why didn't I discover science? And I think every day of another student or another minority that wasn't given the chance. If they're given the chance to discover themselves, they could, you know, it's taken probably a year before we discover a coronavirus, you know, vaccine. They could, you know, I always see potential in people, and I think everybody deserves a chance. Black, white, gray, yellow, we are all one.
Thank you, Esther. We've got a lot of thank yous in the chat also for you. Thank you everyone for joining, and be on the lookout for the next Women at NCS event. Have a great day.